All right, you guys, y'all make me go and do this. The number one comment on all social media is you need to bag the trailer too. And they don't make a kit for that. Trailer's got leaf springs, tandem axle, weird setup, all new. So we're gonna make it happen. One way or another, I went around the shop, scrounged up some pieces here. I'm using a lot of spare bits off of the Sin Racing F450 when I did the full Chaos upgrades on that. Lots of neat little brackets like such that are great for suspension. Kind of, they're all just like 90 degrees. You got a mount here, rod mounts there, so it can mount a variety of ways. I've got a whole box full. I've basically got a full F450 because I replaced everything on it with aluminum. I had a couple of these little touring car shocks that are super stiff, which should be able to hold the weight of what I'm going to be towing on this. And the only servos I had a pair of were these gorgeous little Reefs Raw 100 minis. And I was going to put these in my Vanquish for the shifting and the lockout, but you've got to buy the adapter. The adapters are like 30 bucks to fit it in a normal servo spot. So haven't done that yet. So we'll just make our own mounts and mount it in here. Not sure yet of the geometry or anything yet. First thing I've got to do is strip the sides off of this thing, which does not appear to be quite as easy as the truck was. We've got a lot more supports. That one's not really a support. And there's some stuff wraps around the front, looks like. But I've got to be able to get in here to get the suspension off, get the leaf spring out, and then we can start looking at ways to mount our 4-link. We've got the mounts that are already here. I've got other mounts. Ideally, everything needs to be parallel. We need to be triangulated, keep this thing from shifting side to side, especially being a trailer. It's going to be fighting itself already, turning and sharp angles. So lots of little geometry things to figure out, but this is the fun part. This is what I call RC engineering. It's fun without the math. So follow along. We'll chime in periodically. This kind of stuff, I just vibe out, get some music going, crank up the air conditioner, and stay in here until I figure it out. So let's get going. All right, guys, get you caught up to speed here. So I have all those Sin Racing parts. I used 3 of these. I believe these were a Panhard mount on the F450. It worked out. We took all the leaf spring stuff off. This is the axle sitting straight on the chassis rail. There's nothing we can do short of using a totally different axle setup. So that is as low as it'll go. This tire still kind of turns. That one, well, they both kind of still turn. They're hitting the chassis. I don't know how much of that's going to be tucked on the side. I don't know how much is going to be off the ground. It's not going to lay out quite as well as the truck without going to a different axle and a smaller tire, most likely. So that being what it is, you can see our ramp box here is only 1/2 inch lower than our tire. So that probably would be enough to take it to where we need it to go. But first things first, we got to finish the 4-link. So triangulated 4-link. I made some custom rods, got it to fit, trying to keep everything in line. Right now it is about 2 millimeters back from center. So pivot up to ride height, we are dead center. We'll go any higher, we start moving forward. It's just how it is. It's close enough, looking at the cutouts here on the side for the wheel, that you're not going to really be able to tell. Plus those fenders are very low on the side of this, so I don't think you're even going to notice. Reuse these front leaf spring mounts. Made custom rods. These are the stock Sin F450 ends. These are some RC4 drives that were a little bit longer. Got everything jiving right where I needed it. If we really worried about that, we could take a little bit out of one of these or put the other one back and add a spacer and get it exactly where we need it. But right now, from my experience, that's going to be just fine, because when your range of motion, it's going to move in and out. So as we go up, we're going to be right where we need to be. Getting up too high, start getting crazy. But I put another one of those mounts here in the center. These are bolted from the bottom, and then that one's bolted from the top. I really think that's going to be enough support. There's nothing to attach that one to. This one is actually touching the bottom. I don't know why that one's a little bit different length, but those are awesome because they have 3 different holes. So depending on where we mount our upper rods, we can make it work. I've got a bunch of angled RC4 drive rod ends because our triangulated part needs to be triangular. So I'm trying to figure out, they can't be this short, most likely. That's going to be the thing. We couldn't get into any of this stuff down here because that's structural that those mounts are mounted to. So we're probably going to have to come up here to this and reuse these mounts that we were looking at the beginning. These rods probably a little bit too long. If Facebook would leave me alone for a minute, I could talk to you guys. So I don't know. We got a lot of tinkering to do. These rods, I have no idea how long they are. They're probably at least 100 millimeter. So with the angled rod ends, it's going to put the overall length at like probably 125. So we may have to go really far out, which it's not a problem until we get too far out. But so see how easily these will mount if we can drill holes and bolt straight to this piece. But that's the problem, is getting drill from there and putting screws in, tooling, getting your drill in there, getting your tool, your wrench in there, working at an angle. So just got to see how the cookie crumbles. So let's get back to it. All right, guys. Triangulating 4-link sounds like an easy deal. I've got the rods I wanted to mount it off of this beam. Didn't want to drill through to the floor, but I can't drill through this. There's no angle to get, obviously, with a drill gun. I even got this angle bit out. I just can't get the holes lined up. I boogered this one up a little bit. This thing it has its limitations. We're still stuck with that sort of length, so it barely fit in there at an angle. Just wasn't jiving right, so I think I'm gonna have to do our 4-link mounts through the floor and go from there. There's nothing in that area, so a couple button head screws sticking up, it's not gonna hurt anything. This piece from the Sin Racing truck is made to thread into, so we put the screws in from the outside and not have to worry about it. So I think that's the route we're gonna go. It would be cleaner to have it in here, have it mounted like that, but it is what it is. Gotta do what we can. right, guys, our first hurdle to overcome. So the arms have to be parallel in this because of this tandem setup. Things you don't encounter when you have a single axle, single row of wheels. When we go up, the front comes up. So our lower arms are too long, our bottom arms are too short. They've got to be parallel, same length. So I'm thinking I may just do parallel 4-link, and we may have to put a Panhard in here and go from that. We've got some space back here. We've got opportunity to mount some things. So this isn't going to work. First attempt fails. So live and learn. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to start looking at some other options. I may try to shorten these and see how that all plays out. If we can move these back directly underneath these mounts and everything jive right, then all right. Then maybe we'll be all right. We'll try that first. All right, guys, back to plan C. So I shortened these up, same length rods. These are 40s, I believe. And I'm just holding it in here. We're still getting the same thing. We're still getting the front lift. I'm really hoping if we can triangulate or just have a parallel 4-link, that it will do away with that. I don't know that for a fact. I haven't practiced that, so I don't know for sure. Somebody in the comments probably tell me ahead of time, but that's not how the internet works. So I was really hoping that that would work. There's just no way it's getting tilt either way we go. So parallel, here we go. Got to figure out a new mount for the axle. Got to figure out a Panhard. This is not going to be fun. And also, I don't know what voodoo wizardry that they put these in with these on the Sin Racing ones, but I broke my 1.5. I've had this thing forever. Little dynamite, it snapped off in there. I was holding it with pliers, and it just, yeah, it's not moving. So we got a casualty of war here. All right, guys, you still with me? So, parallel 4-link with a really long Panhard bar. I've been through every rod end and rod I have in the shop tonight. It doesn't look that low right now, but that is fully bottomed out. The axle is setting on the chassis rail. It will not go any lower. I mean, with this little bit smaller tire, we could get a little bit more out of it, but you can see we're going to have to change the hitch. Obviously, we'll go back to the, for other truck hitch that the chassis or the trailer, it's been a long day, that comes with, and then we can adjust it to fit with the hauler. That was a challenge. I was really disappointed when the triangulated 4-link didn't work out. So glad we made it happen. Still needs a little bit of fine tuning. I don't know how much lift we're going to get. When we get too much, the front tires do come off the ground, so we may have to lengthen or shorten some of our 4-link rods accordingly to make it all jive at ride height. We won't know that till we get the servos in and see how much lift we're actually going to get. I don't want too much lift. We just need it to be proportionate, that's going to cause us some trouble. So the lift kit, the servo kit on the hauler, it's in the middle of the truck. It pushes cantilever style. There's a lot of reduction in the movement of the servo through the joints. It has the joint on the servo horn, which moves a lot, and then it has the pivot points on the chassis that don't move as much. So that reduces the servo movement a ton. Without programming the servos on through the radio and stuff like that, we really can't limit how much they go. So we've really got to nail it right the first time. So position of the servo, angle of the shocks, that's going to determine how much lift we get. And yeah, that's going to get us where we need to be, hopefully. So just a little mock-up here. See how low this thing's actually going to be. It's quite a bit lower than it was. I've actually considered cutting out the wheel wells a little bit more on this, but now that I'm seeing it, I kind of actually like it. It kind of looks like full skirt. Trying to decide if I want to do this in 2 videos. I have no idea how long this has been footage-wise. I've been out here for about 4 hours jacking with this, so it's a different world. But this is the kind of stuff I love doing. I love the suspension geometry and playing with it and making things work when they shouldn't. And yeah, so let's see if we can get a little bit further. I'm kind of tired already. I forgot to even tell you what we actually did here. So started with the bottom 2 links. Triangulated stuff didn't work. Made matching links, put the same mounts on the other side of the axle. It's easy to drill through this and tap into it. So they're the same length. We're probably going to have to lengthen the bottom ones just a little bit because we are still getting a little bit of rotation up on the back side. We'll get it down just a little bit, and then that paired with our hitch position on the front, we should be able to keep all 4 planted. Panhard bar, another, this is all RCengineering takeoffs off the F450. Got 4 of those. Those were the Panhard mounts. And then this is an axle 4-link mount. And that was, I don't even remember where that came from. It was a tall, skinny piece. I shaved it down, shoved it down into the plastic inside of the structure of the trailer floor. And then it had one hole that lined up, and I drilled a hole to the chassis and bolted it through that way. So it's as long as I could possibly make it. That's a 129 millimeter rod on RCengineering ends, so their rod ends are short. And the longer your rod, that's what she said, the more parallel your Panhard is, the straighter things will be. So I even noticed it on my Vanquish Phoenix, built it exactly how the kit says, and it has so much droop in the suspension that the front axle sets over to one side slightly because the Panhard. The Panhard's not parallel enough, it's not long enough. That's the key to Panhards, is keeping it as parallel as possible. Realistically, this should probably be higher when this is bottomed out. So your chassis side should come up higher. That way, your full lift, it's almost parallel. Right now, we still got a good bit of an angle, but I'm looking at how far everything is. So right now, all the way down, we're just a hair kicked off to this side. Right there, we're perfectly even. That side, we're still pretty even. So it's going to work out. It's all about the balance and how things pan out. So right now I'm looking at how to mount the shocks. These little shocks, that's actually a perfect ride height. But I've got to figure out electrical first because I need to know which way the servos are going to turn. I need to know how it's going to work on the channel of the radio. I'm thinking about adding it to channel 4. Channel 4 is a 3-position switch. I don't even know if I have a servo wire extension long enough to reach back here from the front of the truck. So maybe making a hobby shop run tomorrow, but that's why we work late at night, so we can figure out what we need to go to the store for the next day. right, guys, I'm calling it a night. We're almost there. Needs a little bit of fine tuning. I think our 4-link is going to work out great. I've got to play with the leverage of the servos right now. It will not lift this with the rat rod on the back. That's my problem. So it's we're almost there. We just need a little bit more leverage. I'm not sure if we're going to get that through mechanical or just go up to a bigger size servo. Those little mini 100s, raw 100s, 100 ounces of torque. They're kind of a mid-size servo, so I don't know. Now I am just driving this straight off the truck. I got like 18 Y adapters in there, so we could be losing some power in that. But let me grab one of the side skirts to show you how this is going to look when it's actually done, because this video has gone on long enough and we need to clean this up in a part 2 when I've had some rest. So we're getting the lift we need. That is pretty close to the stock height. I'm sure that side panel is going to fall off when I hit the button, but I'll try to hold it. So you can see how much lower we're going to set now. Get it lined up. Still won't lay like the truck bed does, but I think that's pretty well close enough. That's all we're going to get with this tire and wheel. That's all we're going to get with this axle. There's no more room to be had. So, yeah, we're going to have to call it a night. Pick this back up tomorrow.